Sometimes the choices we make to benefit ourselves have unintended consequences. What starts as a selfish decision can come back to haunt us, spiraling into consequences that hurt not just us, but those we never expected to affect.
This is A Bad Decision, written by Barrel Coops.
The air smelt of burning tires and something sweet rotten, overripe mangoes left to liquefy in the sun, or a body no one had bothered to find. Grit bit through Patricia's shirt as she pressed her spine to the crumbling shop wall. Her breaths were thin and high, the kind you take when your chest forgets how to work. The gunfire had stopped. The silence was worse. Voices drifted, thinning to nothing, the way tides pull back before they slap the shore. They'd be back. They always came back. Through a bullet hole in the plaster, rough edge scraping her cheek, she found Elias. 10 feet. That was all. 10 feet in a lifetime. He was folded wrong on the tarmac, one arm trapped beneath him, the other reaching for a thing that wasn't there and never would be. His camera lay burst open beside him, its expensive guts glittering across the road. The lens was a cracked spider's web, throwing bright shards of sun into her eyes. Blood seeped from the small, obscene hole in his chest, spreading, bright as a poured Shiraz. The thought hit first, last night's glass, and then the gag, hot and helpless. She bit it back. He hadn't cried out. One moment he'd been whispering, "We shouldn't be here, Pat. I don't like the look of this, it's getting very—" And then the sentence ended for him. The sound that finished it wasn't a word. Now his eyes were stuck open, reflecting sky. Her head swam. The wall kept her upright. "I can't," she told the brick, because saying it to him felt like theft. "I can't believe you're dead." 3 years of working side by side collapsed into a single unbearable image. Elias laughing as he failed to teach her how to order coffee in Swahili. Elias on the phone to Nairobi murmuring, "Good night, my girl," to a baby too small to hold the handset. Elias handing her that baby once, its tiny fist locking around her finger like survival itself. The fist and the phone and the laugh smashed together with the starburst lens and the neat red hole until she had to press her tongue hard to the roof of her mouth to stop from making a sound that would bring the men back. This was her call, her story, her greed. She had barged them both into the district everyone said not to enter. Not for journalists and certainly not for a white girl, chasing a tip from a bartender with tired eyes. White girls shouldn't be here. He'd said, wiping the counter, not looking up. She'd smiled like she knew better. Now the words looped through her skull in the same rhythm as her pulse. Shouldn't be here, until guilt burrowed under her ribs and set up a nest. She deserved the danger. He didn't. If they came back, they would laugh first. They always laughed first. Patricia slid lower, nails digging into the dirt, every muscle trembling with the effort of staying small. She counted her breaths. She tried to count them for Elias, too, as if sharing could make up for what she'd taken. It couldn't, and still she counted, because it was the only thing left that felt like doing anything at all. It had been minutes, elastic, snapping, since the last voice. Patricia counted to 30, then 60. Her legs were needles. She rose an inch at a time and peered over the ragged edge of brick. The street lay stunned in heat. Dust, glittering glass, the hush that follows a scream. For the moment, 10 feet. 10 feet might as well have been a mile. She mouthed the count of her steps anyway, 1, 2, 3, then broke from the wall. The air felt thicker out there, as if it wanted to hold her in place. She skidded on a scatter of camera parts and went to her knees beside Elias. Up close, the smell was iron and sun-baked meat, and her stomach surged. She pressed her fist to her mouth, swallowed it down. Not here. Not over him. "Sorry," she breathed. To him, to the street, to anyone listening, and slid trembling fingers under his collar. The plastic of his press pass caught on the edge of the lanyard clip with a tiny click that sounded like a gunshot in her head. Her hands wouldn't learn. The more she hurried, the worse they shook. She had to bear the weight of him for a second to reach the clasp. He was already going heavy, that slow betrayal of the body that follows after the heart. "For your girl," she whispered, finally freeing it. Not a keepsake. Proof. Something small and solid for a little fist to hold when everyone else talked in soft voices. She tucked the pass into her pocket. It felt obscene to have it. It felt necessary. "I'll come back," she lied, and forced herself to move. The alley mouths were black with shade. She slid into the first one, shoulder to the wall, breath tight. Keep low. Keep quiet. She stepped where the shadows were thickest, testing each bit of ground like it might complain. Behind her, the open street, the blood bright as a flag. Ahead, a grid of narrow ways where sound went to turn circles. They wouldn't be quiet if they saw her. That wasn't their way. They would whoop and call, make a parade of it. They liked their terror with witnesses. But silence had its own teeth. Every bottle tilt, every flap of a loose sheet of tin was a footstep until proven otherwise. She kept looking back and then hated herself for looking back, because forward was where the living happened. The sun dropped by degrees, painting the alley mouths in bruise colours, orange, purple, blue. Yesterday that sky would have meant balcony talk and warm beer and Elias laughing at her vowels. It's not Mzungu, Pat. It's Mzungu. He'd tapped the syllables out on the table like a teacher with a ruler. The memory rose and then flipped, mean as a hook. Beauty now was a taunt you couldn't swat away. Her adrenaline bled off, leaving her cold. The city unstitched itself into a maze of smells and echoes. Rot, smoke, laundry water, someone's radio murmuring news to no one. A dog barked once and then didn't again. She flattened into a doorway and counted heartbeats against the wood until the tremor in her hands became a rhythm she could use. Move on the exhale. Step on the beat. Normal things, gone things. The small currency of last night, lukewarm beer, shared chips, a teasing roll of eyes, had evaporated. What remained was the scrape of her shoe on grit and the knowledge of exactly how hard a wall could be against a spine. She heard voices and froze. Men? Boys? The words slid over each other, too far away to catch, too near to ignore. She waited so long her calves burned. When the sound thinned, she slipped across a cut of open ground, every muscle braced for the weight of a gaze. None fell, this time, and the relief was so sharp it felt like pain. She tried not to think, and thought anyway. This place is a stronghold. Plenty of places to get ambushed. Elias had said it, not unkind, just factual, and she'd filed the fact under inconvenient. She could see the moment she'd smiled and argued like she was negotiating with gravity. The story would make her name. The district would give it to her. How clean the ambition had sounded in her head. How filthy it looked in the street. My ego got him killed. The sentence walked beside her now, step for step, and didn't run out of breath. Serve me right. The words came without pity, and she did not deserve any. If was a small word, a hinge of a word, and it had swung the whole day open. Now if was a canyon. If she had listened, if she had turned back, if she hadn't believed the rules bent for people with cameras and press badges and stubborn mouths. She kept moving because the other option was to sink down and let the city close over her like water. The shadows shuffled and reached. Her brain muttered wind, but her skin didn't buy it. If beat in her ears, if filled her mouth. If was the biggest thing she had ever tried to carry, and it was getting heavier with every step. She had to move. Sitting still let the fear breed. Out of the village, into the open, into whatever came next, as if the open is kinder. The thought slid under her ribs and stayed. The embassy was a dot on a map at the city's edge, a word she repeated like a spell. Safe, if she made it. If again that little word with a knife in it. It should have been me, not him. The sentence didn't echo, it lodged. She slipped past the last lean-tos and cooking fires into the ragged margin where streets forgot themselves. Behind her, the village still barked and cracked. A shout, a burst of gunfire, then the heavy hush that followed trouble. She kept close to the brush line, never quite on the road, letting thorn and scrub right on her clothes. Walk where the eyes don't automatically look. She told herself she was hidden. She told herself a lot of things. By dawn, her feet were raw meat. The shoes she'd worn for looking competent were made for rooms, not this. She found the sandals on a washing line behind a shack that leaned like a drunk, too small. She took them anyway, whispering sorry to a door that would never answer. The straps chewed lines into her skin until the welts wept. Pain steadied her. Pain said, alive. The village fell away by degrees, replaced by scrub and the odd charcoal stump, by the kind of silence that wasn't silence at all, insects, distant engines, the wind fretting at dry grass. Once a truck ghosted past on the far side of a shallow dip. She flattened into a ditch and let diesel sting her throat, counting heartbeats until the sound thinned to memory. Sleep, if that's what to call it, came in shards. She folded herself into the hollow of a termite mound, pressed spine to baked clay, and woke itching, sure that the soft rasp in the grass was a hand. It was the wind. She didn't believe it until it moved on. Twice in the night, headlights carved the dark like knives. She went to ground each time, nose full of dirt, mouth open to breathe without the sound of breathing. Will yourself into the earth. Be rock. Be nothing. The lights passed. The whine of engines unwound. Her hands shook anyway, long after the danger had driven away. Is this the job? Not the interviews and the stand-ups and the clean edits, but this. Learning the shapes of fear in all its sizes, from the tiny click of a twig to the vast flat roar of a road at 3 a.m. He would have handled it. He knew when to turn back. It was a lie. Bravery and caution had lived side by side in Elias, but she needed to believe he had known something she didn't, because the alternative was that she'd dragged them both into this with nothing but want. Morning came thin and grey, the kind that feels like a held breath. In that light, the road didn't look like safety, only distance. A pale ribbon of dust snaking toward the low, tired hills. Somewhere behind those hills was a flag and a gate and a voice that said, "You're safe now." Somewhere behind those hills was a door she could still miss. 50 miles, she told herself. 50. Her body translated it into a number of steps that stopped making sense. Fear did its own maths. 50 might as well have been 500. She swallowed, tasted metal, and kept walking, because stopping would make the quiet notice her. Her first mistake came just past a burned-out petrol station, the forecourt a mosaic of melted tar and the canopy black as a mouth. He stepped out from behind the rusted pumps as if from a school gate, a boy, 12 at most, an AK slung casual across his shoulder. His eyes were pink-rimmed, feverish. His lips were split white. He looked at her for a long time, like he was trying to decide if she was heat shimmer or meat. Then he grinned. His teeth had been filed to points. She should have stayed off the road. She knew it even as the thought arrived late, panting. Easier walking had dragged her into the open. Easier gets you killed. "Mzungu," he said, white girl, almost soft like a greeting he was practicing. Patricia stopped mid-step. The heat pressed at her back. The boy slid the rifle down and levelled it, palm open in a gesture that meant come. She didn't. Was there a price on her? Had her name gone out on a radio? On a rumour? Her throat worked without sound. He barked something else, fast Swahili she couldn't catch. Elias would have, and when she still didn't move, the rifle rose that last, tiny distance that makes all the difference. She saw the circle of the muzzle, black and patient. "Okay," she said, though to whom she didn't know, and put one foot forward. A shout ripped from the tree line. Another boy, smaller, bare feet throwing dust, sprinted toward them, windmilling his arms. He grabbed the first by the shoulder. The argument burst open between them at once. Hissed names, hard consonants, eyes flicking past her down the road. The younger jabbed a finger toward the bend. Patricia heard it then, a low, steady rumble, like thunder learning to speak. A truck. The boys faltered. Fear lit their faces from the inside. Without looking back, they vanished into the scrub, swallowed whole. Their fear chose for her. She ran. The ditch behind the station stank of old oil and hot mud. She flung herself into it, hands sinking, nettles sawing her wrists. Gravel bit her cheek. The truck groaned to a stop on the road above, gears clanking, engine idling like an animal. Voices. Doors. Boots grinding glass. Someone laughed, and the sound slicked her skin. "Not me, not me," she begged the dirt, the way a child bargains with the dark. The first burst came without warning, a hard, tearing rip. Leaves leapt. Twigs snapped apart in neat, indifferent breaks. Something small and mean smacked the soil beside her ear. She shrank into herself until she was all spine and breath. Her teeth chattered, uncontrollable. Shame flared as her bladder went, hot then cold. She clamped a hand over her mouth and tasted iron. Silence returned in jagged pieces, a muttered order, the click of a safety, the insect whine of the engine. Time lost its edges. She counted to 20. Started again when a boot slid on gravel directly above. The world narrowed to the grit in her eyelashes and the slow burn in her calves. If she moved, she died. If she breathed wrong, she died. If, the word kept time with her heart. At last the engine revved. Doors slammed. The truck heaved itself forward, tires crackling over glass, the rumble thinning into distance until it was only memory pretending to be sound. Relief didn't feel like relief. It felt like a fresh kind of terror, the kind that arrives after you've used up the first. She stayed pressed into the ditch long after the road went quiet, shaking so hard the weeds trembled with her, waiting for the next noise with all the patience of an animal that has learned it is prey. Her second mistake was thinking water meant mercy. Dusk laid thin gold on a shallow stream, the kind of trickle you'd call clean if you were desperate enough. She was. She cupped her hands, brought the first mouthful up, the smell of wet stone and leaf rot making her throat flutter. A sound snagged the moment, a soft animal whimper. Patricia looked up. A girl crouched in the reeds on the far bank, 8, 9 at most, dress torn, face striped with dirt and salt. For a heartbeat they held each other's gaze. The girl's head snapped side to side. No, no, no. And then she was gone, folded into the green without a sound. Patricia didn't get time to ask why. The trees tore open and 3 men stepped out. Their fatigues were a patchwork of other men's wars, but their faces matched. Weathered, impatient, already bored of whatever they'd have to do. They hadn't seen her yet. She slid flat behind a fallen log, chest pressed to damp bark, the stream gurgling loud as a siren. Her heart tried to drum out of her ribs. She pleaded with it silently. Small, small, be small, and it answered with more noise. They came within 10 feet, boots worrying dust. One man's trousers were tucked into socks. Another's rifle was taped at the grip. The third wore a necklace of spent casings like teeth. They smelled of cigarettes and old sweat, and something metallic the water couldn't wash away. The one with the casings paused, lifted his chin, sniffed the air like a dog finding a bad memory. Can he smell me? Can he smell fear? Can he smell the truck on my clothes? The leader snapped a word sharp enough to cut, and the sniffer moved on. Their voices thinned as they followed the girl's path upriver, lazy until they weren't. Patricia didn't move, not for a long time. The light bled out of the day in increments. Mosquitoes tuned themselves to her ears. The stream made its small, uncaring sounds. She counted to 100, then again, then lost the numbers and just breathed the way prey learns to breathe. Slow, shallow, as if the world could be tricked by manners. When the darkness finally gathered enough to cover a crawl, she slid from the log and belly inched toward a tangle of rocks. Every scrape sounded like a confession. Every leaf was a trap. She wedged herself into the stone and let the cramps take her one by one, a ledger her body kept without asking. Sleep, when it came, was mean and short, a thief rifling drawers. She woke to a thin grey and the sure, stomach-deep knowledge, or suspicion turned into knowledge by repetition, that they were looking for her now. Not just anyone, her. The girl's warning shake, the men moving without hurry, the truck that stitched its search across the road, the pattern arranged itself. She was a rumour with legs, she was something to find. Her body was done pretending otherwise. Thirst clawed her throat with dull, hooked claws. She could still hear the stream, the clean lie of it, and still she couldn't go back. The image of the men stepping out of the green lived there now. Hunger knotted her belly into tight sailor's work she couldn't undo. There was nothing to eat but the guilt she kept chewing. You chose this. You brought him. You didn't listen. It didn't fill her. The road had slipped away sometime after the boys and the truck and the ditch. She'd left it on purpose, yes, easier to hide in the scrub, and promised herself she'd intersect it again. Yesterday. That had been yesterday. Now there was only the sun and her best guess, and best guesses were what got Elias killed. East, she told herself. City is east. He would know by the ground, by the wind. He would have smiled, patient, and set them right. He was not here to do that. She hated herself for wishing he were, because wishing was just another way to use him. She set off anyway, stumbling more than walking, eyes on the gaps between trees where light collected. The world had reduced to small decisions, left of that thorn, right of that stump, stop when the breath gets loud. She pushed through a last clutch of scrub and saw it, a thread of smoke lifting into the pale morning, precise as a finger, beyond the next low ridge. Hope arrived with teeth. Smoke meant fire. Fire meant people. People meant water, or food, or a gate slammed in her face, or a truck like the one that had stitched the ditch around her. She crouched, watching the thin column unspool into the wind, and felt her pulse climb again, not from running this time, but from the simple arithmetic of risk. Go and you might live. Go and you might not. Stay and you become a story no one tells. She wiped her cracked lips with the back of her hand, tasted salt and dust, and began to crawl toward the ridge, every sound a threat, every foot of ground a question with only bad answers. She took the last rise on all fours, breath snagging in her throat, and then the ground fell away, and there it was, a walled compound crouched behind a new crown of razor wire, the Union Jack snapping hard in a wind that hadn't touched her all morning. For a second she didn't trust her eyes. Flags could be stolen. Walls could belong to anyone. Hope was a trickster. It had teeth. A sound shuddered up from behind her, a distant shout, an engine straining, and the decision made itself. She ran. By the time she reached the gate she was sobbing, and not the careful kind. She didn't care who saw. Let them think her weak. Let them shoot her for coming too close. She dragged the press badge from her pocket with hands that wouldn't obey, held it up like a saint's bone. Shouts. Rifles shouldered. A red dot jittered once across her chest and vanished. Hands! Show your hands! She lifted them, badge and all, elbows locked, the day distilling to that small, ridiculous rectangle of plastic with Elias's warm weight still ghosting her palm. The gates moved. Slow at first, then certain. She didn't remember giving up her knees, only the tile, cool and unforgiving against her cheek. The smell. Antiseptic, lemon, something clean enough to hurt. Footsteps. A man's voice, soft and firm as gauze pressed to a wound. You're safe now, you're safe. She wasn't sure she believed him. The words reached her as if through water. Safe was a word people said when there were still bullets in the world. Her body floated and sank by turns. Relief felt too big. It slid off her. The white was everywhere. Walls, light, coats, a shimmering expanse that wouldn't resolve. She had the sudden, stupid certainty that if she reached out, she'd touch cloud. The voice kept going, patient, as if repeating the truth could make it true. A young woman's face swam into view. Hands gentle, a glass pressed to Patricia's fingers. Real lemonade, tart, cold, seeds ticking against her teeth. Lemons. Actually, lemons. Her favourite since she was small. She closed her eyes and let the sour cut through the metal in her mouth. For the first time in days, the future didn't feel like a cliff. She felt the pull then. Not sleep, not quite. A lightness at the edges as if something were lifting her by the collarbone. She thought of Elias, of the tiny fist that had once wrapped her finger, of the gate swinging open, of the flag bright against the hard blue sky. She needn't worry any more, she thought, and the thought settled with a curious, weightless certainty. Whether it was because she had finally stepped inside a place men with guns couldn't touch, or because she had stepped somewhere no one could, she couldn't tell. Either way, for the first time since the shot, she realized she was in heaven.
This was A Bad Decision, written by Barrel Coops. I hope you enjoyed my short story. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. I have written over 500 short stories over the years under many pen names. I will be updating these and recording them under the Barrel Coops name. I will be listing them on YouTube as fast as we can get them recorded. They will include historical drama, humor, adventure, romance, period drama, mystery, thriller, war stories, spy stories, revenge, horror, psychological horror, dystopian, disaster, children's stories, love stories, and more. Too many to name. Something for everyone. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up. It helps others find my channel. Until next time, thank you for listening to the end.